Welcome to the MyCom Screencast. My name is Eric Seiberling, and today I'm going to show you how to build an editorial calendar for your church. Now you may ask, what's an editorial calendar? And so really it's a schedule in order to be able to drive the coordination and the planning of your communication efforts. And then ultimately when you post things online. And so instead of just posting when you remember or having a committee build their own flyer. Instead, this is a way for the church to be able to say, this is what we're going to communicate, when we're going to communicate, and how we're going to communicate, and, and really drive effectiveness of your efforts. And so you may ask, why does our church need an editorial calendar? And so what happens is, if we don't plan, then all the work that we do it may not be as effective. And so it helps really drive awareness of your church to the community, as well as it drives consistency of your communication efforts. And one of the things that we've seen in research is the more consistently that a church posts and the more of a rhythm that it has, that people know when to expect, when to see, for example, an event invite, or when to see, any particular piece of communication. It ends up really helping people to engage. And there's also good times to post. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And finally, it allows coordination of your content creation efforts. Is that you really don't want to leave this up to the pastor or just up to one individual to do everything, whether it's the church secretary or a volunteer. But instead, when you have a calendar, you can start to delegate the work and allow people to use their strengths, whether it's someone that's good at design or someone that just loves using social media or anyone else. And so it's just a different way to organize yourself, but I think it really helps churches be effective in their efforts. So the first step really is to create a calendar. And in general, you want to focus on a quarter or 13 weeks. And that really allows churches to take a bigger picture view on what they're creating, when they're creating, and even the content. And so, in this calendar, this is an example of something that I put together in Microsoft Word. And so I start with it's a table, and you'll be able to download this template down in the show notes. But it starts with the week and the week number. And the reason I use that is it's much easier to say, hey, on week 30, we have to have this done as compared to saying July 23rd. Now, it's just a way to be able to for people to take a look at the schedule. So, second is week start date. And so in this calendar, we start on Mondays. So that way we can focus the efforts to then end on worship on Sunday morning. Sermon series and sermon title and scripture. That just really helps provide really, I think, a focus for your communication efforts, along with the major activities, which is the next block. And the last piece is really the core of what we're getting at, which is the materials that are needed and the posting schedule. So, second step, what you want to do is you want to add the sermon schedule in this. And so, this usually uh, we work with the pastor, and she usually plans 3 to 6 months out. And I know that may sound a little crazy, but that allows both the worship team and that allows the communication team in order to get a basic plan together, so everyone can get the work done and be able to plan our efforts with excellence. And so, in this, our pastor uses a sermon series and then lines up the scripture and the titles. And that's really what we need until we start to move much closer to the actual Sunday. So we have that listed here. If your church is one that uses the lectionary, it's a matter of working with the pastor and putting in the lectionary scriptures and just putting in a working title or a working focus that he or she wants to use for that. And so we add that in. Next, what we do under major activities is we add the major holidays and the events for your community. So in this, you see some of the basic events that you'd expect from a national standpoint. You've got the 4th of July holiday, Labor Day, and then September 11th. And we put those in because usually people in churches expect to see something communicated, in that, whether it's in church or whether it's even on social media. And so, it's very good to have that in there so we can use that at the end of the day when we get to our schedule that we know we need to post something about that. The other things for our community, we live in Wapakoneta, Ohio. And so that was the boyhood home of Neil Armstrong. And so every year there's the Summer Moon Festival on the weekend where Neil stepped on the moon, which was July 21st. And so that is a big event for our community, as well as just school and, very child-oriented community. So we have that in there as well. Next, what we want to do is we want to add the major events for the church. And so in this case, what you see in red is kind of our event strategy. If we start with a very big event, the school fair, and then we've got the Labor Day barbecue and family fun days as our next community outreach event, and then we use that both to pull into our parenting classes. And so this is really our outreach strategy that we've laid in next. Now, for any event for a church, it's really important to create a recipe for an event. And by doing this, then for any major event that you do, you end up having the recipe and you know what to create for them. And so you can have a team work very quickly to build these things. And there's ways these materials are actually created very quickly using a tool called canva.com. And we'll do a screencast later on how we actually created this content. So a recipe for an event, this is what I recommend, is that for social media and email, you do, what is an event announcement, one great reason to come, and a 48-hour reminder. And so at least at minimum, you've got the basic tools. You could do more. It depends on your community. But this really, I think, represents kind of the basics. The other piece is a large formatted poster, usually in color, just because that's the type that you hang around the community, whether it's at key businesses and so on, and then just an invitation handout. And so what's interesting, the invitation handout is that's the one that we put in the bulletin, and then people are expected to hand that out to one of their neighbors that doesn't have a church home. And so we get the whole church involved in communication efforts, but we make it easy for them to do it. And so this is the recipe that I feel like for even a small church, this is you can do this. So then, it really comes down to timing. And so in social media and email for this recipe, the event announcement, you put out 2 weeks before the event. For one great reason to come, we do 1 week before the event, and then a 48-hour reminder 2 days before the event. For printed materials, you want to get those 2 to 3 weeks out ahead of time. And the invitation handout, you want to do this Sunday before the event. And so it's just the basic way to do that. Next, you add the event material. So taking that recipe, what we did is we just started to lay that out. So 3 weeks before the school fair, we put in the school fair posters, and that's when we're going to post that. Then, the school fair announcement, which is 2 weeks out. The one great reason to come, 1 week out. The invitation in the bulletin, that Sunday. And then finally, the 48-hour reminder before the school fair. And so we do the same thing for the other events. So we've got the family fun days. Again, it's the exact same template. And then for the parenting classes, the same thing. And so this creates you start to see how the editorial calendar starts to create itself. Now, what you have here is the marketing materials that you need to create. But it's also important, research has shown, that really you need to create a regular presence on social media, and so posting 3 to 5 times a week. Now, this is a sample schedule. You can use what works for you, but just come up with a pattern that you can replicate for your church. So, on Monday, you can create a celebrate or thank you post of, let's say, of a ministry or an event that you did. You can do a blog post from the pastor. You can do upcoming events and so on. On Tuesday, you can ask a question that's relevant, to the upcoming sermon topic. And then Wednesday, do a service story, a highlight about a parishioner or ministry to show that your church is doing things in your community, but it's also made of real people. It's not about the building, but it's about what we do and who does it. Thursday, do the event announcement or 48-hour reminder. And then Friday, invite people to attend Sunday worship. Now, you may ask yourself, you know, why these days? Why wait till Thursday to do an event announcement? And what they've seen in the research is that Thursday is the highest um, attention day for social media, and emails actually on Tuesday. And so that's you'll start to see that in the calendar as we start to move forward. Now, extra credit if you end up using Facebook Live, doing remotes from your event, just make it like a radio remote of like, hi, this is in this case, Eric, and we're here at the school fair, and I just want to show you a few of the great things that are here. So you don't have to Facebook Live the 4 hours of your event, but what you could do is just give people a taste, especially early in the event, and so they may be interested in coming in at the last minute. So then what you want to do is you want to fill out each week, starting with the events. And so we took that calendar and we laid that out on the schedule. And then you see where I just set a regular schedule. This is just have the recipe in front of you so you can start to lay that out. So we put in the materials. What we've done is we now schedule them on Monday through Sunday. Then next, what we did is we added the question related to the sermon topic. Then we looked at, just kind of, I'd say, the regular things that we look to do. So Monday, which is either the ministry highlight, or it could be a blog post on the new sermon series, or even just the schedule of events for the week. And then on Wednesday, we just rotate through and create a schedule. So over the 13 weeks or even half a year, we can highlight every single ministry of the church. And then you have the invitation for Sunday worship on Friday. So then, next it really is, once you have that full schedule built, it's a matter of producing the materials and working forward through it. And so what you see on the screen here is what that looks like. And, this is from our church. And so you can see there's a common look and feel. People can end up, for our church, it's very distinctive. And we can talk a little bit about how do I use visual design and font and approach to do that. And we'll cover that at a later screencast. But as you take a look at this, if you see just this regular drumbeat of communication, people start to become more aware of your church. It's very easy to coordinate the design of the materials. If you see the use of a common template, use of a common photo that we own the rights to, and so on. And then just the posting schedule of deciding who's going to post what on what day. And so this is just, again, a simple way to use a communication editorial calendar in order to help your church. Now, I know that's a lot to do. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at eric@brokensheep.com or make a comment below. You'll also see a full editorial calendar for your that was created for the screencast, and feel free to use that template for your own church or create your own. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this screencast, and have a blessed day.